Create a YouTube video script 3,000 words about Trump may prevent Brazilians from coming to the 2026 World Cup. Could Brazilians really be banned from entering the United States during the 2026 World Cup? Might sound like a wild idea, but with Donald Trump leading the polls in the 2024 U.S. election, and his track record on immigration, it's not entirely out of the question. In today's deep dive, we'll explore how U.S. immigration policy could shift if Trump returns to power, what that could mean for Brazilian fans and players, and how it could impact the biggest sporting event on Earth, the 2026 FIFA World Cup, hosted right here in North America. Let's break it down. Trump's political comeback in 2026 context. In November 2024, Americans will head to the polls. At the time of this recording, Donald Trump is leading in several key battleground states and remains a strong contender for re-election. Now let's fast forward. If Trump wins in 2024, he will be in office during the 2026 World Cup, which is being co-hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico. The U.S. will host 60 out of the 80 total matches, including the final in New Jersey. Cities like Miami, Los Angeles, New York, Atlanta, and Houston are expected to draw tens of thousands of international visitors, many of them from Latin America. And you can bet Brazil will be one of the most followed teams. Historically, Brazil travels very well for World Cups. In 2014, when they hosted, they sold over 3 million tickets. In 2018 and 2022, Brazilians ranked among the top international ticket buyers. So, imagine a scenario where Trump's immigration policies end up affecting Brazilian travelers. To understand the concern, let's rewind. In his first term, Donald Trump implemented some of the most aggressive immigration policies in recent U.S. history. We're talking about the infamous Muslim ban, Title 42 expulsions, family separation at the border, stricter visa screenings, and lowered refugee caps. Although Brazil was not directly targeted in his policies, Latin America as a region was heavily impacted, especially Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. Under Trump, even legal immigration became more difficult. Tourist visas, student visas, and even work visas saw longer processing times and higher rejection rates. So, if Trump were to take a similar hardline stance in a second term, could Brazilians be caught in the crossfire? During Trump's presidency, his relationship with Brazil was relatively warm, largely due to Brazil's far-right former president Jair Bolsonaro, who was often called the Trump of the tropics. But things have changed. As of 2025, Brazil is led by President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, a left-wing leader who has clashed with conservative policies and openly criticized Trump's influence on global politics. In fact, Lula recently stated that a Trump victory could destabilize democratic norms worldwide. This tension could impact diplomatic relations, and when diplomacy sours, visas and travel agreements can become collateral damage. If Trump aims to prioritize American interests, he could tighten visa requirements for countries that don't align ideologically. Brazil, under Lula, might find itself in that category. Let's be clear. It's unlikely that Trump would outright ban all Brazilians from entering the U.S. However, here are 4 ways he could indirectly block or limit their presence at the 2026 World Cup. Visa-free travel rollback. Brazil is not part of the U.S. visa waiver program. That means Brazilians already need a tourist visa to visit the U.S. for any reason, including to attend the World Cup. Under Trump, consular operations could slow down again. Interviews might be delayed, and rejection rates could rise. Security-based entry limits. Trump could issue executive orders to restrict travel from certain countries under national security grounds. This is what he did with several Muslim-majority countries. If he deems certain Latin American countries as high risk, Brazil could be affected. COVID-like public health restrictions. If there's any global outbreak, real or exaggerated, Trump has previously used health as a justification for restricting entry from countries. He temporarily banned travelers from Brazil in 2020 due to COVID-19. Administrative delays. Even without a formal ban, making it harder to get appointments, slowing down visa processing, or requiring extra documentation could discourage travel. This is de facto exclusion, no ban needed. In all these scenarios, the result is the same. fewer Brazilians able to attend the World Cup. One important question is whether Brazilian players could be blocked. Highly unlikely. Professional athletes and FIFA-associated personnel generally get expedited or special category visas. Even during tense diplomatic periods, countries tend to make exceptions for elite athletes, especially if they're participating in a global event like the World Cup. So while Neymar, Vinicius Jr., and other stars are very likely to be allowed in, it's the fans, the lifeblood of the World Cup atmosphere, who may face obstacles. If Trump does take a hardline stance that affects international attendance, the backlash from the football community could be huge. FIFA has historically avoided political conflicts, but pressure from sponsors, broadcasters, and human rights groups could force them to take a stand. Already, several advocacy groups are preparing for possible immigration restrictions tied to the World Cup. They argue that a global event should remain open and welcoming, regardless of political leadership. And let's not forget, the World Cup is big money. Cities are spending billions on infrastructure, and they're expecting international tourism to pay off. Any immigration limits could backfire economically. Brazil is a proud footballing nation, and their government will likely respond if Trump's policies are seen as discriminatory. Retaliatory visa restrictions are common in diplomatic disputes. If the U.S. were to make it harder for Brazilians to travel, Brazil could respond in kind, affecting American tourists, businesspeople, and even U.S. athletes playing in Brazil-based clubs. Additionally, Brazil could appeal to FIFA to apply pressure on the U.S. to ensure fair access for fans and players. Let's not forget, FIFA has strict human rights and anti-discrimination policies that host nations are required to honor, at least on paper. If you're a Brazilian football fan hoping to attend the 2026 World Cup, here's what you can do now. Just in case. Apply for your U.S. visa early. The earlier, the better. You'll beat any potential backlog. Follow U.S. election developments. Trump's re-election would be the key turning point here. Monitor FIFA announcements. If there's pressure on the U.S. to loosen entry requirements, it will likely be announced through FIFA or related organizations. Have a plan B. Since matches will also be hosted in Canada and Mexico, you might consider watching games there, especially if entry to the U.S. becomes a problem. Preparation is key. Don't wait until it's too late. If Brazilians and other Latin Americans face travel hurdles, the 2026 World Cup could lose much of its vibrant energy. The World Cup is not just about football. It's about the people, the culture, the chants, the colors. And no one does it quite like the Brazilians. Imagine a World Cup final in Miami or New Jersey, with stadiums only half full, without the drums, the samba, the green and yellow sea of fans. It's unthinkable, but not impossible. It's a reminder that politics and sports are not separate, especially when one of the most controversial political figures of our time is back in the driver's seat. A new debate has arisen on the world political stage. U.S. President Donald Trump is considering the possibility of banning visas for Brazilian citizens, reports CNNBrazil.com. According to the news, this restriction may remain in force even during the 2026 World Cup. According to information, U.S. officials intend, through this decision, to shift public sentiment in Brazil against the country's leadership. This could create serious obstacles for the Brazil national team and its supporters during one of the world's biggest football events, the World Cup. The 2026 World Cup will take place from June 11th to July 19th in the territories of the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. Millions of football fans from around the globe are expected to attend the tournament. At the same time, visa restrictions for fans coming from Brazil have become the subject of major discussion. Analysts point out that such political decisions can seriously impact international sporting events and change the football atmosphere as well. Despite all obstacles, players and supporters are planning to travel and support their team. In the coming weeks and months, it will be of great interest what decision the U.S. government will make on this issue and how the Brazilian side will respond. Fans hope that at the 2026 World Cup, equal opportunities will be created for all teams and supporters.